So kind of summarizing the end state here, basically the game does play pretty tight with the rondel keeping the options similar for most players. You can see it was kind of 8 to 9 to blue actually finished with a flurry and had 11 at the end. He was able to have a balance between the galleys in the sea and the legions on the land, and the last moves was able to route into green to get couple extra cities and 2 temples, which gave him basically 3 in the last 2 rounds to put him over the top. Now for yellow, he got caught in a little bit of, he was quite powerful in the sea and was just a move or 2 away of getting into the temples of blue here in Hellas. But basically Roma got stuck a little bit in no man's land because he wasn't quite able to reach into Germania with his legions here. He did occupy the sea, but was also a couple moves away maybe from expanding further to get an extra, to get another 7 seas sailed, totaling 14. So he's a little short on that. Meanwhile in Germania, he focused early, and I have to admit I didn't take into account some of the bonuses that Germania have, especially this Regnum and Res Republica for protection. So I kind of overlooked a few things this game. But basically, he had quite a few of the know-how cards, the scholars, but because of that he was a little bit behind building up his military legions, and ultimately had a lot of his forces taking off the board. Now he was able to get the 7 seas up here, and he was able to take out one of Roma's temples, but in general he was a bit behind with firepower, if you will, at the end. Another thing, a couple players had too much marble at the end. I overbought for that because once the temples were basically down to 0 or 1 temple at the end before a couple got destroyed and put on back on the side, but that was an error I made overbuying in marble. Pretty much marble, once the temples are built, marble is useless. Gold is still became fairly useless as well because most players had what they needed purchased from the scholarly know-how items, and basically it was just a rally to get more iron to build military at the end. But overall, very balanced at the end. You kind of see how it's just a question of who's got something within reach in the last few turns to get those final temples destroyed to get the final points at the end to reach the end, because basically at the end it's kind of, you're down to just limited options, either between destroying temples, maybe getting your 10th city, or getting some extra seas sailed to reach the final goals for the final points, depending on the number of players in the game. If you're playing with up to 6 players, then you only need to score 7 victory points because they'd be that much tighter. So that's my summary for the first game played of Antike II. Thanks guys. Have a good evening.